and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have one change to the agenda. We will be having an executive session to review the performance of a public employee. We anticipate that'll last about 30 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of an executive session.
I'll second that and also mention that I'm a little bit time constrained today, so I think we're planning to end at 10 and I'd like us to try to stick to that.
Okay, great. I will try to keep us on track then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to the consent agenda with approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 23rd, 2024 and approval of claims for February 13th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Nope. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now we are on to public comments. There's nobody in the room. Is there anyone online? I don't see any hands. There will be another opportunity at the end of the meeting for public comment as well. So we will have the general manager's report.
Thank you, commissioners. I've got a whole bunch of stuff, but hopefully they're all going to be relatively short. Last weekend, we had a failure at plant one of our pumps went out. It was identified on kind of the red flag report on Consor. So we knew this was one of our assets that was in pretty bad shape. Obviously it was in worse shape and it did fail. It was a check valve that failed that caused the pump to kind of tear itself apart. So I declared an emergency so we could begin repairs. That's outside of the normal delegation of authority. And my obligation is obviously to let you guys know as soon as I can at the next meeting that we declared an emergency and that you'll see invoices for remediation that may exceed the normal delegation of authority for the GM. Any questions on that? Okay. The WPUDA is having their annual meeting. I think you guys all saw that.
Yeah.
The reason I'm bringing it up is kind of twofold. I don't know if there's anything around this other than the Skamania Lodge. They do have block rooms reserved there. So if anybody's interested in going, I would recommend really this week, get a hold of Ann, get reservations. I don't know what
When
else
is it?
It is April 17th through the 19th at the Skamania Lodge in Stevenson, Washington. And I think I can honestly say I've never been there.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's the only thing there. So if you
I
want
think
to go,
I'm planning to go.
like, okay, yeah, I mean, you need to reach out.
I'll email Ann, that way you have it.
Okay.
Thanks, Sam.
So I would just
In advance.
kind of like vote early, vote on March 1, we're gonna have the candidates for AGM come in. Right now, we have 2 candidates. Ann's working with them, trying to get travel arranged and all that. One is in state, the other's out of state from the Midwest. So travel arrangements are at this point still unknown, but we're targeting March 1. So one thing I'll need from the commission is we'll need to set that meeting. And so I'm not sure of the procedure at this point. If we just need a motion setting.
Just a motion to set the special meeting. Chris, as we discussed, you can go into executive session for reviewing the qualifications of executive candidates or public employee candidates. So just a motion to set a special meeting on the date and time and location.
Do we want to do that at the next meeting or do you want to do it? We don't really know the times yet, do we?
Well, I mean, we're trying to set it up so it'll be in the middle of the day.
Mhm.
So for the commission, I would recommend 11 to about 2. And that'll give us time to do the interviews and have a quick debrief
I
afterwards.
can make that motion.
On March 1st.
On March 1st.
Okay. One of the days we all were.
Yeah, everybody was okay there.
I'll second the motion. Did you make the motion?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
On that subject, are you done talking about the AGM yet or?
Yeah.
Okay, so what commission input have you received to date on that, and what are you looking for from the commission? So that, you know, we're prepared for the meeting.
Yeah, I'll get you more information, including the resumes of the candidates. Specifically, you know, you need to think about fit in the current organization and then long-term fit. So the input that I've received from commissioners is, you know, hire for today because we have to keep, you know, the water flowing and the lights on, but also hire for tomorrow as the utility changes. And then ultimately, and this is a personal thing, I would hope that most, if not all, the direct reports of the GM could be ultimately considered candidates, succession plan candidates for the GM.
Mhm.
And so this would be one of those potential options. And the idea would be at the time that you need a new general manager, whenever that is, my goal would be to have at least one viable internal option that you could look at, as well as any external search you want to conduct. So I like giving you guys options.
Question,
Shoot.
how many candidates, how big was the candidate pool that we started with?
So the recruiter that we dealt with starts with a candidate pool in the tens of thousands and then winnows it down. So we had probably 25 or so viable candidates.
Mhm.
And we got it winnowed down to, when it was presented to us, 7 that were, you know, viable. The reality was, Brian and I went through it, and we had 2 that were, we think, qualified.
Right.
And those are the ones that we had a Zoom interview with both of them. And I think it's worthy to bring them in to have you guys and the rest of the organization talk to them and get some feedback.
And then it sounds, so you're gonna send us the resumes. I think if we have interview questions, well, can you just give us more information on how you want to structure the interview or what we should do? Do we want to have a list of questions beforehand?
I guess the guidelines are whatever questions you ask of one candidate, you should ask of all.
Okay,
So be consistent in what you're looking for. So, you know, you're not giving disparate treatment or anything like that. I can give you some guidelines. My interviewing is usually a little bit different than a lot of people. A lot of folks, especially for technical jobs, will ask a whole series of technical questions, and I tend to want to get to know the person more. The technical stuff you can get from the resume, by and large. Not entirely, but a lot of it. So I typically ask only 3 or 4 questions that are the answers tend to be very, very long. It starts a conversation.
Okay.
So I can give you guys some recommendations, and then feel free to set them aside and do what you want.
and you've already interviewed both these candidates
Yes.
on Zoom. Okay,
Yeah, we've Zoomed them, and we think it's worthwhile bringing them in.
great.
And our role is advisory, right? I mean, the ultimate decision to hire is still with you. Is that correct?
That's
Yes,
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but I want your opinion.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're a small organization.
Mhm.
If I had a staff of hundreds, I could get a whole department of people after this, and we need everybody's opinion.
Great.
Shifting gears altogether, I don't know if you guys heard, Tyler Schroeder is moving to the Port of Bellingham as our new economic development director, replacing Don Goldberg. And that announcement came out a week ago, Friday. And I think I wrote to him and congratulated him, and I also congratulated Rob Fix on a great hire. Unfortunately, the county is going to have a great hole to fill, and I don't have any insight on what they're going to do about that, but you guys should hear more. But I'll let you know what's going on there. Kind of speaking about that, we're going to have a short executive session on power supply for the jail sometime in the next couple of meetings. So just heads up, I'll be talking about that. And John, there'll be sufficient grounds for it around competitive real estate and other things. There's some real reasons we want to talk about it privately.
Okay, we'll go through that.
Yeah, I'm not making a proposal to do that today. This is just a heads up for the commission. I've engaged Karina Hoyer. We've got the contract signed and meetings start. I'll be meeting with her next Friday, and there'll be a whole series of interviews with everybody. So expect that to start, reach out, and then at some point she'll be organizing the retreat. And I think this is going to be a good thing. Just the few conversations that I've had with her, I think If you guys don't know her, I didn't know her, but I think you're gonna like her and like working with her. I think that'll be very productive. The last thing that I've got, any questions on that?
Nope.
So I've got every once in a while we do something that's kind of fun around here and fun for me. I'm a nerd, I admit it, but I'm always looking for new technologies to serve either water or electric. And there was an article on a distributed wind company, Aeromine. It was in the Wall Street Journal, and normally when I hear about these things, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, so what? But when it's in the journal, they usually are a real company and they've got a real product and all that. So I called them and said, hey, can we talk? And they said, oh my God, first call's in Washington, and yeah, we'd love to talk to you guys. And so Andrew and I did. And what I want to do is kind of pass this around. We've got no folks that are. So this is part of a propaganda cut sheet that the company has. Let me just walk through a couple of the highlights. So the first page that you see is an illustration, and this is a really, Christine, could you turn back to that first page? There's some, one more, there you go. Sorry. Yeah, this one. So this is the non-technical answer for the technical person. There are two sources of acceleration of the wind. One is the venturi through the wind turbine itself. And the second is using the building to create a venturi where the wind hits the face of the building, flows straight up, and then right over the parapet and into the base of the turbine. So you've got something that's pushing the wind from the base and something that's pulling the wind from the top. And that's why this technology is a little different. So this picture is, think about a Costco, for instance. It'd be an ideal application for something like that. Each one of these units is 5 kilowatts. They think that the marketing price on these is 10,000 a unit. That does not include installation. So you can figure double or triple of that. So it's a little bit more on the front end than a solar system, but it's also pretty capable. On the so on this page, this is for those who think about venturis. What a venturi does is you neck down the flow. That causes the flow to be much faster, and where it's faster, it's low pressure. So you see the chimney that goes to the turbine. You can see a picture of the turbine down there in the base. That chimney is open on the back side, and that's the low pressure zone in the venturi. That's right at the throat. So it's sucking the air up by having the wind go through. And that sucking the air up is what's causing the acceleration, which makes these things work. So there's this page gives you dimensions. And then I've got a cut sheet that has technical data on it. Anyway, it was really neat talking to these guys. It is not clear that this technology would work in Western Washington at all. They're doing a wind assessment for us for our facility here and also for Phillips, our customer. And not at Phillips' request. This was just me and Andrew and Brian were asking to do this. If it doesn't work here, we'll at least know. If it does pencil out, then we'll talk to them. Maybe we do a demonstration project, and then that becomes more of a talking point with Puget and Puget's customers as opposed to us, because Costco and warehouses and all those things, they're all Puget's customers in this region. So, but it'd be an idea that we could bring something and show it to be cost effective, if in fact it is. And then we could help market it and get another form of distributed energy flowing around here, not just solar. So just wanted you guys to know we're always looking. This may not amount to anything, but it was a lot of fun, and I thought I'd share it with you.
What do you think Rob Fix's interest is in these ideas? I mean, the port's got lots of buildings out where this might be something to find.
Yeah, let's find out if it works. The study that they're doing out at Phillips is about the most exposed point that you could think for this, for prevailing westerlies, for instance. And so if it makes sense there, or if it makes sense here and there, then it's, yeah, let's approach the port and others.
And there's 2 other exposed points, I would assume, and that's where the Lummi Island Ferry.
Well, that may very well be, but we have control of one site.
Yeah, and then Point Roberts too. Both, I mean, so yeah, there's lots of potentials. Yeah, like they said, explore it first and see whether it can work at all.
Right. And if it doesn't work, we're not gonna.
Yeah, but thanks
It's
for.
just, we've at least checked it out.
Thanks
If
for
it
looking.
does work, then I may come back to you guys and say, hey, we want to spend about 30 grand, get one of these things installed. And, you know, works on paper, does it work in reality? So just more to follow. The one that I really wanted to see is this outfit called Mighty Watts, and I've been working with them for 4 years now. They still haven't got anything near commercialization. These guys just waltzed in, and I'm happy for them. And I'm confident that this technology will work in the Midwest, where you have much higher prevailing winds. But and that's their current target market. They want to saturate the Midwest, all of the buildings there with these things. And, I'm confident it'll work there. It's
I go warehouses.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
It's
think
really
about,
cool.
well, and down in Skagit, you think about the Amazon distribution center, it has, the building profile is exactly what you see here, and they're struggling with the charging stations that they've got in there. They've got like 5 megawatts of charging stations, level 2 chargers for overnight charging of their delivery vans. And, you know, they're just kind of like, we're going to get the power from, well, maybe some of it you could get locally. No. But I mean, if you think about it, you need 100 of those on a building to get 0.5 megawatt of capacity. So, you know, these things help. They're not the total answer. They're part of the answer if they work. So, yes, ma'am.
Can I make a suggestion that you or one of us, I mean, you all are going down to Waputa. I think it'd be really cool if they presented to Waputa in the future, because I mean, there's a lot of PUDs that might be interested in this technology.
Especially over on the eastern side, I would say they'd be a dead bang. But yeah, I want to find out what they're, because when they said, okay, we'll do a wind analysis for you.
Mhm.
And we said, yes. I'd really like to know what that looks like before I'd say, hey, you ought to take a look at this.
Okay.
But, you know, there's an awful lot of, I think Waputa needs to look forward on these technologies. And that's, since it's a organization that's driven by its constituents, you know, I think that the PUDs need to be pushing that. And then, you know, and I've pushed them a little bit. I think they really do need to be looking at fusion and as a long-term thing, because it's so hard to understand that. And, you know, you need to see it over and over and over. If it comes to pass and we've got fusion in 10 years, you know, the time to get people ready for it mentally is now. And so we need to be driving that. This is the same. We need to have people pushing it. So yes, if it makes any kind of sense, we'll take it to them.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
That is it for the GM report.
Okay.
Unless you have any questions.
Thank you. So we will move on to old business and start with a broadband update. Who will be given that today?
Andrew should be giving it. Where's Andrew? There he is. Hi, Andrew.
Good morning. All right, we'll kick off with just a brief update on the Point Roberts project. So last week we executed our agreement with Cobb Fenley and Associates. They're our design engineering firm, and so we'll have a kickoff meeting this week to get that going for the design engineering phase. So excited about that. Probably a number of future updates will just be an update on, of course, where the team is with the engineering phase, but still on track by June timeframe to complete design engineering. But if anything changes, we'll certainly let the commission know. And in that process, we'll be looking to identify a co-location facility. You might recall our conversations that Would Be Tell did receive a large middle mile grant. And so they'll be looking to land, if you will, in Point Roberts. And so we're working with them to identify if there's a way that we can tie into their existing, or excuse me, into a new co-location facility that they'll be building as part of that middle mile funding that they received. So that would be a nice way for additional providers, rather than coming through the Canadian-born route into Point Roberts, to enter Point Roberts through a subsea mid-mile and up into Point Roberts. So it would just potentially allow for additional providers to access the network in the future. With that, Would Be Tell's also expressed interest in leasing the fiber from the PUD once the project is built. So we'll pursue that, and we'll put we've been talking about how we would operate this network once it's up and running. And so next week, I think we're at a point now where next commission meeting, we'll be able to present to you what we're thinking in terms of operation, the agreements that providers would sign, so on and so forth. So Chris and I have talked, and we anticipate the next commission meeting to come to you with what that would look like.
Great.
I'll stop there, and then if I missed anything, otherwise I'll move on to a couple other just updates. So project area boundaries. We did hear from WSBO, the Washington State Broadband Office, last week that they are almost ready to send to us the project boundary areas. So what that means is they'll send us project areas that will essentially be census blocks, and there'll be multiple census blocks connected together until the WSBO thinks there's roughly 1,000 unserved address points in that project area. So we'll be getting those project areas here soon that we'll be able to then work with the port and identify, and divide and conquer which areas the port wants to take, which areas maybe the PUD wants to take. But that's coming down the pipe. And you might know for years, folks working on broadband, we come up with the project areas, but for BEAD, the state will develop these project area boundaries, and then we will apply for some, if not all, but so can the private sector and so can others. So that's where the state will have an apples to apple comparison of our project against others. So more to come on that. I think we've talked a lot about that in the past, but just wanted to let you know that we are still moving in that direction, especially in preparation for the upcoming challenge process. Let's see, what else did I want to say on that? Oh, and for areas outside of BEAD, so we would not be constrained to those boundaries that the state provided to us if we're pursuing, let's say other federal opportunities or other state opportunities as well. And so we have worked with the port through the steering committee, and we have already divided the areas that we would target for the non-BEAD project areas as well. And we're starting to engage providers and starting to run preliminary cost analysis for the project area that the PUD would most likely apply, which is essentially East County. And that takes me to Glacier, where we learned from the Glacier communities, at least one individual who was a previous board member, that there may be a solution to serve Glacier that does not require grant funding or the need for the PUD involvement, which would be a win-win for everybody. I mean, if the private sector can serve the Glacier communities on their own and it makes financial sense for them, then that is great. So we have a meeting with Ziply this week to explore what they intend to do there in Glacier and just kind of true that up and just, ask if there's anything they do need from us, or if they do want to work with us on a future opportunity. But really exciting if we can move on to other areas of the community. Anytime an area gets served and we can move on to go help another area that is in more need is always great. And then the franchise agreement that I know John's been working to carry the torch for us. I believe we're still on deck for the county council to committee of the whole to review on February 20th, and then a public hearing for March 5th.
That's
so correct. If I got any of that wrong, Chris, John.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Oh, thanks.
Andrew, I just want to supplement one thing on the BEAD application. And this was a real interest of Executive Sidhu. BEAD allows hybrid solutions, and it's the first of the bunch that really allow that. In the past, it was fiber to the home or nothing. I mean, you could submit other projects, but they weren't scored well, and so BEAD allows that. But the problem with the way the state's administering it is they'll go ahead and take the home run fiber and they'll evaluate all those, and if they're too expensive, then they'll say, okay, we'll entertain a hybrid solution, and that we don't have a cut line for that too expensive. If they told us, hey, it's 5,000 to pass, if you're over that, a hybrid solution is okay. They're not telling us that. They're just saying, we're going to look at the home run fiber solutions, and if we deem them to be too expensive, we'll look at a hybrid system. So what this means is, in an area where you likely would have a hybrid solution as the cost-effective solution, we're probably going to have to submit two different applications. One that is the fiber only and the other that is a hybrid. If the fiber only bunch are too expensive, they'll automatically divert to the hybrid bunch. If you don't have a project offered there, you're out of luck. So some of these areas, we'll come back and let you know, but there may be a few of these areas where we want to have two offers, a hybrid solution and a fiber solution. So just FYI, it's double work for Andrew, I'm sorry, but we just may end up having to do that to have a competitive offer in all these areas. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the boilerplate, all the stuff on the digital equity will be the same. The issue is going to be the configuration, the network configuration is going to be radically different. That's important because you have to, well, it's important in this case because you have to have a stamped design.
Yeah.
And in, yeah, and in the past you didn't have to do that. So this is one of those ones where, you know, we may have to have some significant investment up front just to have the second application. And that's just the way BEAD is set up. So I don't recall anything else to add on any of that, Andrew, if you don't.
I'm all set. Thanks.
I have one just follow-up question. And that's what are we doing to make sure that we have the engineering support? So right now it's not a rush because we're still in the challenge process. It doesn't feel like a rush to me. I don't know, Andrew, how much of a rush it is for you your day to day, but there'll be a day when we'll have a lot to do relatively quickly. And I'm just making sure that we do everything we can to line up the ducks so that the resources are ready for us to draw and do these variations and analysis and design.
Yeah.
If it's an open question.
So I know that Andrew's been working with Cobb Finley. That's something that they would do. So it's a matter of, you know, it's a professional services. Do we need to offer that competitively? You know, how big is it going to be? All that. So yes, we've run down that whole thing, what we're going to need to do. And we think we've got answers for it.
Are we finished with broadband updates?
I think so.
Okay, let's move to adjudication then.
Thank you. I shouldn't be too long, but two primary things I'll cover is what the committee is doing and the rules for procedure, and then the pending bills. The rules procedure has been the focus lately. Working with the Lummi Council, we have discussing where we might structure procedural rules for litigation, what might be in a court order, pretrial order, what would be a local court rule. We had developed a table of the issues, how the current local rules, how the RCW and how the state court rules would affect that. Discussed that with the state administration of courts and with Lummi, and have sent that out to the committee members, and hopefully that'll be the guide for discussion in 2 weeks to the next local bar committee meeting occurs. That's really been the focus at this point of the discussions with Lummi that we've had. They were most interested in this and some of the pending legislation. We have not engaged in the supply discussions in the last meeting or two, but we'll reinvigorate that once we get through the session. No questions on that. It kind of transitions adjudication with legislation. I think you're aware the bill for the new judge in Whatcom County has passed through the House and is working its way through the Senate. That was one opposition in the House, and we expect it to sail through the Senate as well. The water code updates have been gone back and forth between our office and the administration of courts and with the Lummi, and we've been supportive and kind of aligned with the Lummi on the concerns with what the bill had done. You may recall the state court and local court anticipates using a referee to kind of handle fact-finding hearings, particularly for possibly not finally determined, but possibly for the smaller applications that are smaller claims that are being reviewed. That statute, when we talk about referees, refers to the right to a jury trial, the allocation of cost to individual parties, things like that. And we oppose that use of a referee statute that the state was referring to. Lummi's agreed with us, and we've been working on our own language. That language we worked on with the Lummi has made it into Senator Shoemake's substitute bill that's going forward, and I believe has support from the administration of courts. So that revision is working through on that code, and we're satisfied with it. It's not the perfect bill, but we think it's good enough in a short session. And that's
Great.
all I have.
Any questions?
I would say
Cool.
adjudication, the filing of the petition is still anticipated to occur in April.
So obviously Jamie and I are going to Olympia this week. Is there anything you need support from us on?
while we're there? Any
If,
words
no,
we
I
could
think
say to-
if asked, you say we're supporting Senator Shoemake's substitute bill on Senate Bill 5828.
And similarly on the geothermal, you know, at this point, if asked, you know, we do support the bills that are going through, and it looks like passed out of the Senate
It-
yesterday.
Yeah, do you want me to talk a little bit about the
Yeah.
legislative update on geo, because I was down in Olympia at the end of January and met with several different legislators related to the budget proviso that we're working on with the Nooksack tribe. And Senate Bill 6039 and the House bill is 2129. But yeah, we learned yesterday that the Senate bill, which is Senator Lovelet wrote, passed unanimously out of the Senate.
Yep, 49-0.
So I think there's a pretty good chance that it's gonna make it through the House too, if it does that well. I mean, that's my sense. So the lobbyist that Chris got under contract kind of took me around, and we met with the ranking Republican on Senate Ways and Means, the chair of the House Capital Budget, Joe Fitzgibbon, who's kind of in charge of the Climate Commitment Act funding requests, and the ranking Republican for the House Capital Budget. And there was a lot of support for geothermal. I think folks from Southwest Washington are also interested in it because there's so much potential there. And I think people that have skepticism about renewables like it because it's base load. So it's getting a lot of bipartisan support. So fingers crossed that we get that funding to do the pre-feasibility study, and that the grant passes, the bill that would create the grant program. So I think just continuing to say that you're supportive of Senate Bill 6039, and that if this budget proviso is kind of a way for us to be a leader in the state, and that, we would be able to share what we learned, and that it's a great sort of tribal public utility partnership. But so far, so good.
Yeah,
But the budget item is a different issue, right? So do we know anything about that, how that's proceeding?
I don't know where the proviso is, to tell you the truth.
Well, we know that it's,
I think it passed out of the House.
well, I don't know if I don't know where we're at with it. We know that we're asking for it out of operating. It might be good to check in with Scott and see where we're at with that, so that
And then
he could,
Then I'll
yeah,
ping all three of us.
okay, yeah. Things change fast and furiously.
Yeah, if there's anything we can do to support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, Andrew, do you have any update on where the potential leases are?
No new information other than the last correspondence with BLM is that they're reviewing our proposed nomination of land leases, and they will have a decision by the end of this month, is what we've heard, that they'll then pass over to the Forest Service for further review. But no new update. I think we've reported that in the past.
Yeah.
Oh, just one other thing is that the Madam Chairwoman of the Nooksack tribe, Rosemary Leclerc, has testified twice in favor of this geothermal bill.
Oh my
So she's
goodness.
gotten pretty engaged on this, which is really cool to see.
Mhm. I think that's it for the geothermal update. We've actually made some real progress.
Great.
I feel very good. about it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, this is a good year for legislative, across my fingers, knock on wood, right? But it's a good year for us.
Yeah, and we continue to get requests from the local community for more presentations. And that's something I think we just need to keep the drumbeat going and
Yeah.
know that I'm available, Andrew's available, Christine's pinch hit a number of times, done a great job.
Yeah.
So, that's part of it, is we need to keep the interest alive in the community and even broaden that to the extent we can. It's all working.
Oh, I took some pictures while I was down there. Can you guys remember to take some pictures and we can send them all to
Yes.
Chris and we can just do one Facebook post of
Yeah.
like commissioners and
Okay,
Olympia?
great idea.
Great, that's a good idea. Okay, well, let's move on to new business then. It looks like we need to approve the professional services agreement with K Engineers.
Yeah, it
How's
looks like
that?
Kurt's here to talk to us about it.
Great.
Morning, Commissioners. Morning, John. It's another PSA for engineering. We have obviously asking for a lot of outside support, keep coming to all of you. But this is for K Engineers. They've been giving us support for a VFD project that we've been working on, and we just want to, like it shows, it expired in December, but we want to keep them on board. So just want to kind of get a new PSA going with K Engineers. So just here to request your approval.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the professional service agreement with K Engineers.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Thanks,
Okay.
Commissioners.
We'll
So,
move- go
yeah, the
ahead.
next item, actually, the next two items are cancellation of warrants, and one of them is a reissued warrant. Ah,
Does that work?
Stephanie is here.
And is that one working?
Oh, that was.
Okay.
We just had the first warrant from Branham. They just didn't receive their warrant at all from December, so I have to reissue it so they can get payment for that. And then the Pitney Bowes, we received it back in the mail and we just decided to pay that with the company credit card so we wouldn't have any late fees.
Okay.
And that one doesn't have to be reissued.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 845.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 846.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
And I talked to Brian and Kurt this morning, and there's a ton of stuff going on in operations, but it's all routine.
Oh.
So they would defer to the next time, and give you some highlights.
Okay, so no operations report this morning. All right, then we will move to the commissioners report.
You're looking at me, so I'll go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, first thing is, yeah, I'm sad that, you may have all heard that Commissioner Waddell from Clallam PUD passed, last Monday. He was a friend of mine. I went to his house a couple of times, and, I wrote a statement that I read at the, Clallam PUD meeting yesterday. And I'm planning to make a statement at the Board of Directors meeting as well. And I think the most notable thing about this person is that he was really had a tremendous intellect and a discerning ability, and he was able to pursue something without embracing even things that served his interests. Meaning he was a strong proponent of removal of the Snake River dams. But, even when people made arguments that supported that, and if they were specious, he never tolerated them. He always torpedoed arguments that were not based in facts. And I think that's a kind of integrity and professionalism that we don't see that as much as maybe we'd like. And speaking for myself, there's times when I've embraced things maybe that served my interest, but maybe weren't completely grounded. So it was a real teaching experience for me to always stick to the facts, because one day you're gone and the facts are still around, So when you make solid arguments, they actually they survive you. And I think so for that reason, he's a good lesson for all of us. Obviously, I got to know him on a personal level, and I'll share some of that on Friday. I have had a fascination with the subject of virtual power plants, and I think Commissioner Grant, you also curious about the idea. So I've maintained this dialogue with Marcus Vitaro, and we don't have a distribution network, and we don't have generation facilities, so it's very premature to talk too much about it. But he has secured some funding from the state level on what he calls resilient hubs. And so I've asked Chris to sit in on a meeting with Marcus in the next a few months, maybe, and we'll be able to pull something off in March, just to discuss it further and see if there's anything that fits in with what happens here at the PUD, or if we can provide any useful input to him in his activities, because certainly it's a beneficial thing for us to be supporting those kinds of ideas. Next week, at the end of the week, I have a series of meetings with county council members, Jace at the city as well, Mayor Lund, the county executive, and Barry and Kaylee. I just kind of put them all in the Wednesday through Friday period. And I'd like to request one or maybe at the most 2 per diems for all those meetings. I mean, I think I don't want to do it for every meeting because there will be some overlap between personal interest and things like that too. So, but between one, depending on how many meetings actually happen, because sometimes they get canceled, between 1 or 2 per diems on Wednesday through Friday for all of those meetings. And what I plan to do is at those meetings talk about water, broadband, and energy for sure. At least for a big chunk of the meetings, be wearing my PUD hat and talk to them or where things are at. And what I want to do is make sure that we continue to get support from the city and the county on broadband, recognizing that it's a long haul and it's an infrastructure takes a long time, and to not get bored with the subject of broadband, because it's quietly working away and improving our infrastructure and giving us economic development benefits. I'll obviously update them where we are on the energy front and on the adjudication and waterfront too. And I think our successes, legislative successes, will continue to be a useful way to express how effective the PUD is being on all of these fronts. And the next thing I have to bring up is unfortunate. I discovered when I was completing my expense report for January that and I did take the train down. Several of my 2 of my receipts, which are printed on thermal paper, have the actual detail on the receipts. The totals are there, the detail is missing. And this is particularly problematic because one of them is from a restaurant referred to as the Swing Wine Bar. And the Swing Wine Bar is a famous establishment in Olympia, which is right off the Capitol. And it's a restaurant. They call themselves a wine bar. PUD policies that you don't buy alcohol, which I didn't actually that night. I did purchase an alcoholic beverage. And so did the commissioner from Thurston County, Chris Stearns, who was my mentor. So we both purchased alcohol, but you can't see any detail on this. And the total is $99.77. So it's not a cheap place. So we both bought entrees and a dessert, and he normally pays. And on this particular occasion, I decided I'd take the tab. But it says $99.77, and there's no details. So I'm asking the commission to approve these receipts. You're welcome to take a look at them, recognizing that I'm on my honor. Yeah, and so as far as a corrective action, John, from now on, when I get my receipts, I will take a photograph of them too, in case this happens again. Because as a bike commuter, sometimes things get wet in my pocket and it deletes the that is kind of wetness can do it. Heat from my legs can do it because it's sitting in my pocket. So I don't know how else to say, but I'm on my honor on this one. Yes.
So just as a remedy for this particular one, I would suggest, Commissioner, that you attest that some amount of that is for the alcohol and just deduct it and then ask the other commissioners to approve.
But there was actually none of it I actually asked for a separate bill for the alcohol purchase. None of these have any alcohol on them.
Then I think the issue would be you're attesting that and
Yeah.
asking for a variance from the other 2 commissioners.
Yeah, I mean, I approve it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I know that there's an app for you to just, I haven't used it in forever. There used to be an app where you could just take a photo and it would save receipts for things like this.
Yeah,
for,
I could use that app or I could,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I'll
we
just
might
take a
want to think
picture.
about that for receipts because it could be easier. for
Yeah, we'd have
us.
to rewrite the policy. It requires the original receipt today.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I can still
So-
provide the original, but if there's an error, that ever happens again, I'll have a way of protecting the fact of what's on the receipt, so.
Let's just do a motion for the agenda, for the minutes.
Okay,
Oh, I move that we accept, Commissioner Deshmani's receipt for $99.17 to the
77.
77 cents to the Swing Wine Bar.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You gotta
Motion
say aye.
carries.
Aye.
Okay.
Well, you could recuse.
Oh,
It's just
good,
that-
yeah.
Yeah, I don't blush often, but the name of that restaurant.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
All right.
Okay,
You could be
Is that
meeting
all?
with Skagit, you could be meeting with Skagit officials and go to the train wreck, which
yeah.
Yeah.
that's right.
Oh, it's like what, what an ironic experience. Okay, all righty, thanks.
Is
That's
that
it.
all for you? Okay.
Okay,
Christine?
I will start mine. I have quite a few things, because I had a 3 days in Olympia. Energy Northwest. Kind of high level things, they're asking for $25 million from the legislature this legislative session to try to get their kind of 4 80 megawatt SMR, small modular reactors off the ground. You guys probably heard too that Puget Sound Energy has contributed $10 million to Energy Northwest to push that project along as well, which is interesting. So there was a legislative reception in Olympia with a bunch of legislators, and a big news was that Microsoft came out at the last minute and supported Energy Northwest's $25 million request and sent some kind of big names from Microsoft working on nuclear to the legislative reception. So, and then in addition to that, they've had a bunch of unions show support for that $25 million request. There's still obviously a lot of football left to play with the legislative session, and one of the big challenges is that the Climate Commitment Act is where most of the revenue for that $25 million is coming from. And there's an initiative that could be on the ballot in November repealing the Climate Commitment Act. So what I learned, and I think this is still current according to a conversation with Joe Fitzgibbon, is that no one will get money until after the November election. If the Climate Commitment Act gets killed, that $25 million is gone. So we can't fund new clean energy projects if we don't have a revenue stream for it. We'll see what happens with the initiative, but there's a chance that a lot of clean energy projects won't get funded if the Climate Commitment Act goes away, including the work on including this $25 million for the small modular reactor. The other big news is that Tim Sheldon, who's been on the Energy Northwest Executive Board for a long time and was a former state legislator, his term is up on the executive board. He's an outside director, so he's not one of the he's not on the PUD commissioner track. So there's kind of this process right now trying to determine who should replace him. There's also just been a lot of conversation in general about the executive board. It's very heavily comprised of PUD commissioners. And that was kind of on purpose after whoops, like the big municipal bond default, which, PUDs paid dearly for. But one of the kind of concerns, which even people on the executive board that are inside directors, PUD commissioners are talking about, is really the professionalization of the executive board. It's pretty obvious that we're going to need to attract some private capital to get the funding that's needed to get this project off the ground. And frankly, a lot of the people on the executive board have no experience professionally in nuclear. So really the need for people that have nuclear construction background, people that have financed like really big infrastructure projects, like this is gonna be a $2 billion project. So kind of just the need to update the composition of the board. They are looking for resumes right now. Tim Sheldon wants to continue to serve. But I have sent an email out to some folks to see if they're interested. I can forward the email to Chris too, if either of you know anyone. I think more options is better.
Well, I'm shooting high.
Yeah,
Carol Browner, former director of the EPA. She's a strong nuclear proponent.
Okay.
And, you know, she went through that transition of you know, first coming from an environmental NGO kind of exposure background earlier in her life and
Okay.
discovering the opportunity that nuclear was. And she's a very high profile person
Okay.
at times in her life. Right now, not so high profile, but certainly she's presented at retreats that the Energy Northwest Board, and I got to see her talk and present, and she's very effective.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. I mean, I worry a little bit that there's not really much of a recruitment effort that goes on.
There
with
needs
some
to
of
be a
these.
sub, I mean, the obvious thing is
Um,
there needs to be a subcommittee created at Energy.
There has been a subcommittee created and they've contacted other members of Energy Northwest to ask, you know, what do we think? But I definitely worry that this board is not, we need to professionalize the board a little bit more. And I've heard that from some legislators too, that the governance structure of Energy Northwest might need some updating. Also, the work that they're doing isn't going to just benefit or impact PUD communities anymore. This is a project that's gonna really impact and hopefully benefit all Washingtonians. And so I do think that there's some need for some structural change there. So I've provided feedback to the committee that was formed. Jerry Asmussen from Okanagan is kind of leading that. And that's a good suggestion around this woman, Carol Bronner. I'll look that up. But I just wanted you to all be aware of it because I think it is a pretty big deal, especially with where our state is potentially headed with new nuclear and how we're doing that.
Are there residency requirements for the board?
No.
I'm surprised to hear that they don't have an actual board development thing. Like that's.
Yeah, I mean, one
Well,
also
It was
probably,
created as a joint action agency by the PUDs. I mean, that's why the governance is so PUD heavy. And it just, you know, as Commissioner Grant's pointing out, it's time to move that.
well, the legislature technically was the one that set up the governance structure.
Okay.
So it would need to be a legislative change, I believe. That's, yeah. I think that there's some movement to change it, but yeah, there's a woman from Tennessee, Janet Herron, who flies in. She used to work for TVA. And then there's Bill Batista, who's the nuke, who actually is like a nuclear engineer. The problem is that the compensation is quite low.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's not gonna attract people that could.
So another place that they could potentially find people, and Chris, please chime in, is Arizona Public Service. And at times, Arizona Public Service has been, they have a nuclear plant. I think, is it the largest in the country or sort of?
Laverde? No, Vogel's the largest.
Okay, it's a big nuclear plant though.
Hmm.
And they have at times been innovative and forward thinking. And there might be people in that world.
Well, I mean,
And they're a public entity. It's like
Yeah.
we want kind of we want public ideally, but also kind of business minded, you know, investment minded.
The only thing I'll observe is that all those big utilities that run these plants, run the plants. They don't build them. And they never have. And so I would, you know, I'd look to the nuclear navy, who, you know, they build and commission all kinds of, you know, that's where our, the current CEO of Energy Northwest came out of the nuclear navy. And the reason is he was in charge of, you know, designing, constructing, commissioning reactors that went into these boats and ships. And, so that's one source. Then you've got GE, Westinghouse, Babcock and Wilcox. The people who actually build these darn things and have installed them. The thing that when you look at the 4th generation SMRs, it's really TerraPower and NuScale and places like that. So you don't want to invite someone that's involved in, because you get that self-dealing issue. But it's different than what GE and B&W and others have built, Westinghouse. Those have been 1st and 2nd generation boiling water and PWR reactors. So the 4th generation reactors are different than it's a weird problem, but I would suggest that the industry that actually designs and build these things is probably the best place to look if you really want someone to help them fund, design, and build these things.
Well, those are good suggestions. If you have any names or form, I'll forward the email to you, and if you could forward it.
I've got a real off the wall suggestion. But...
Well, I think I'm just concerned
Miss America.
that there's, oh yeah, well, she's been involved, yeah. I'm concerned that there's not a whole lot of effort going into this, and I see a real need for some more just diversity of professional experience on the board. I'm not seeing I just think that this is a pretty critical time for Energy Northwest, and they need the right group of people on that executive board. So I'll keep going. The other thing that came up at the Energy Northwest board meeting is that they're going to be getting a copy of this book called How Big Things Get Done for Everyone by Bent Fleischberg, who's Danish, and this guy Dan Gardner. Dan Gardner has actually presented to Energy Northwest staff. It's basically just about, it's about how big things get done. So I was going to suggest that this might be a good book to get a few copies at the PUD, especially
some big things.
as we think about geothermal, broadband. But I think we're at a time in, American history where we're trying to get big things done, and people were just raving about this book. I haven't had a chance to get a copy of it, but so I wanted to pass that on. The last thing is just with your meetings with the city of Bellingham. Joe Timmons was kind of working for the city of Bellingham for a little while. We updated him on geothermal, but I would just, if you could just let them know that I also was a consultant that's working for the city on climate. This is probably the 3rd or 4th time I've been interviewed, but I said, you guys should learn about what we're trying to do on geothermal. And I've had a very brief conversation with Mayor Lund about geothermal, but maybe you could just mention that if they'd like a presentation from, Chris or Andrew, we'd be happy to do that if it's something they're wanting to learn more about. And then I know I'm taking a long time, but it seems like we have a little bit more time. The last thing that I was interested in, Chris, is I'm sure we've all been hearing a lot about AI. The IT team will be happy to hear that I did my training that I have been asked to do for our cybersecurity, and I was interested that AI is one of the things that's coming up in those trainings too. What's our policy? What's your organization's policy on AI? And I think that there's some ways that AI could really help us, when we're talking about these grant applications, right? I filled out these grant applications too, Andrew, and it's write a 300-word summary of what your proposal is. AI could do that in 30 seconds versus, a human. It would take me, 30 minutes or more to do that. So I just would love to hear from the IT team and Chris on, how have we thought about this opportunity? How can we make it work safely for our organization so that, we're competitive with other organizations we're competing against on grants and things like that. cause I think it could be a real asset. That's it.
Commissioner, I appreciate the comment on AI and you use the word safely just because we're seeing in some municipal organizations that it's being used as a sword against municipal organizations from the public comment period or bombarding with written comments and is used sometimes as a political tool adversely. So there's a lot of opportunities with AI, but there's also a lot of potential downfalls of how it's used. So as we go through approaching AI, we need to think about how it's used as a sword, but how it's used as a beneficial tool.
Agreed.
Commissioner reports for me. I am excited to be going to Wapuda. I leave today. I know Atul and I will both be serving coffee for a day on the hill and attending the barbecue. I also have an upcoming YRA 1 board meeting. I can't remember what day it is though, so I'll keep that short and sweet. That's it for me.
Can I just, since both of you
Yeah.
are going to Wapuda, are one of you gonna be covering all the meetings, or should I be popping in on energy and board of directors?
I will not be attending energy. You probably.
I'll attend it
yeah.
all.
You
Yeah,
will, okay.
yeah, but I'll.
Then I'll just get the update from you guys, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't have ordinarily had to attend the board of directors meeting,
Mhm.
particularly since I'd like to get to Portland.
Yeah,
But because I'm memorializing Commissioner Waddell, I'll be there. So
okay,
I'll be there till 10 a.m. So I'll
Okay.
be there for most of that.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And I think I'm your replacement for the board of directors. Am I not here?
Yes.
Anyway. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but
Yeah,
if Tool's
yeah,
there, then
okay.
it usually is done way before
Yeah.
the agenda says it's gonna be done, so.
I really appreciated all the reports, particularly hearing from you, Commissioner Grant, about Energy Northwest, and I really feel like you're doing a great job
Yeah, I agree.
at Energy Northwest in particular. Not every good everywhere. Great
Yeah.
jobs everywhere, but I meant really appreciated that. Particularly it's such a established organization, so.
Okay,
Have fun in Olympia. It's always exciting down there.
we have one more chance for public comment. There's nobody in the room, so any hands? It doesn't look like it. We will be going into an executive session to review performance of a public employee. That should take us till about 9:45, maybe, John?
Yeah, let's say 9:40, and if we have to send a text for extension, we'll do that.
Okay.
I'd rather have that than have you hold around longer than necessary.
Sure. 40.
Okay. A break?
I don't need a break.
I don't
I'm
know.
gonna, and Mike McCumber, so I can join remotely, I'm gonna go over to the other Zoom link.
Yep, I will get that.
Yes. Okay,
I'll
great.
get that set up.
We're
And
going adjourning the public meeting.
Yes.
It'll take me a couple minutes, so like 9:20-ish.
okay, sounds great.
All right.
Okay,
So we've got 2-minute break.
Okay.
okay.
We'll just stay here for 2 minutes.
Oh, do we have a hat? PUD hat?
Mhm.
Can I have?
Take us off mute here. So, there we go.
It's now 9:55 and we are coming back from executive session. No action was taken and meeting is adjourned.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, John.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Valentine's Day.
We'll
Later.
talk to you later this week.